Hello and welcome to this special webinar on International Childhood Cancer Day 2023. So good to have you all. Thank you for those of you that have joined us for this live stream. And for some of you who perhaps have clicked through on a later date, welcome to you all. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Peter Ndoro. It's my honor and privilege to be your host for today's very important conversation. Today, the 15th of February, is International Childhood Cancer Day, and it's marked to highlight the importance of community participation and support in the fight against childhood cancer and in every country around the world. It's a global collaborative, a campaign to raise awareness about childhood cancer, its unique challenges, whilst at the same time showing support for children and adolescents with cancer, survivors, as well as their families worldwide. Now, during the first year of the campaign, #ThroughOurHands, we paid tribute to the doctors and the medical staff working with children with cancer and their families. Last year, through your hands, we paid tribute to the survivors of childhood cancer. As we approach the final year of the ICCD's three-year campaign, which is themed Better Survival is Achievable through their hands, we'll be paying tribute to the caregivers and the siblings. They play a key role in the lives of children and adolescents with cancer, and their positive impact is often, sadly, overlooked. So for those of you perhaps don't know, CHOC Childhood Cancer Foundation in South Africa celebrates the lives of children and teens with cancer and the communities affected by childhood cancer in South Africa, Africa, as well as globally. Once again, thank you all very much indeed for joining us and listening to the hearts and the siblings, the parents, the families, and their journeys. I think it's going to be a pretty important conversation that we're having today. I want to thank you so much indeed for being a part of that. Now, this is one cancer journey, but many hands that carry the patients through those journeys. And we've got some great voices, people that I'm excited to be meeting with you today, and also one international guest that I'm going to introduce a little bit later on. So much to look forward to. And so I think let's begin. And my first guest is Cleo Sosibio, who's a CHOC Regional Program Assistant and House Supervisor at CHOC House in Pietermaritzburg. Cleo was 15 years old when her sister, 7-year-old sister, was diagnosed with leukemia. She passed when she was 9 years old. Cleo had two siblings. Now it's only she and her younger brother. Thanks so much indeed for joining us, and welcome, Cleo.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me.
All right, so on a day like today, I guess for you, Childhood Cancer Day, International Childhood Cancer Day becomes quite important. I mean, your little sister was sick for 2 years, and that must have been a really difficult time for you, I'm guessing. And during that time, and after her passing, your sister, there were people that supported you. And I just wonder what it meant to you, and you think to your sister, to get that support from the people around you.
Like I said, thank you once again for having me. The experience was not too nice to actually experience at such a young age. I was very young at that time. I was 15, Ndoro was the eldest. I was the only daughter that was old at that time. My sister was 7 years old, and when she got diagnosed, unfortunately, we were not fully aware of cancer. And
all right, it looks like we might have lost Cleo. Cleo, you're still there? Ah, great. Good to have you back.
Yes.
Yeah. Load shedding, signal issues. That's the drama that we're facing here. All right.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
No,
Yes.
don't worry.
So Cancer was saying at that time we were not fully aware of all the symptoms and everything else that came with cancer. It was actually our first member in the family that had been diagnosed with cancer. And having to go through the journey wasn't easy for at all, not only for myself, but for my mother and my younger brother and the entire family on its own, because having to live with a child that is diagnosed with cancer, there are things that they can't eat. There are some kinds of meals that they have to be prepared for. They need to attend to chemo. They need to have some certain dosage of medication. It was a very painful journey, but however, with the support of the community, the doctors, and our pastor, it was very much easy for us to get through and finally be where we are right now.
I would imagine also being the oldest, you probably had a lot more responsibility put upon you. How did you cope being the older sister and having, I suppose, to help manage?
To tell you the truth, it wasn't easy at all because I had school. I had my sister to look after because at that point my mother was still working. So when I came back from school, she was staying with my grandmother. So I had to make sure that everything of hers was sorted out before I could work on my homework or anything else. I had responsibilities of making sure that the house was clean. I needed to make sure that our meals are prepared and accordingly and to the neatest. So I wasn't able to fully get the mother love because we all had to fully attend to Abongile. I'm sorry if I did not mention her name was Abongile Sosibo. So all our attention was based on her. And at some points, me and my brother felt like we were neglected at that point because we did not really feel or see that our mother really cared about us except for her. But after she was gone, to tell you something, that's when we really got to see and understand that she had to do all she had to do for her. And she tried by all means to make sure that she was there to save her, to be there when she needed to go to the hospital. It wasn't an easy journey, but we managed to get where we are. Even my brother, because we didn't even have to go to counseling at that time. He wasn't coping at school. It was actually hard for him.
Yeah, I can imagine. But now you work at a CHOC in KwaZulu-Natal. What led you to that journey?
Firstly, I am a qualified nurse, but when I heard of the opportunity that CHOC was, because I've been following CHOC for the past 15 years or so, if I'm not mistaken. So when I heard that they were actually had an opportunity, that's when I was like, let me not do it for my sister, but also let me do it for all the kids that are suffering in a similar situation. Because it's not only about the kids, but also the mothers, the siblings that are left neglected, like myself. It's also other family members that don't know what to do, or rather, they don't know the symptoms, the early symptoms. Because I sometimes still believe that only if we had learned more about cancer at that time, maybe we could have done more to actually try and save her life. So my point of being a CHOC was not only to get employed, but also try and go out there, make a difference, put awareness campaigns into schools and other people and make them aware of cancer and try to do prevention than cure.
Yeah, I think you might have answered some of my next question. I just wonder, because you had this personal experience with your own sister, what have you been able to bring to your job now?
It has been amazing being here. I don't lie to you, very challenging because of times I've gone through to the hospital to see other kids that are severely sick. But however, it has made me to see that those mothers and the kids, they need love, they need attention, and they also need the support you can give them. So that's what I've also brought my experience, knowing that sometimes you can even hide your feelings. You can even not say how you feel because you don't know how's the other person going to react to your situation. So I've laid that open to the mothers and the kids as well, that should there be a problem, I am here 24/7 to listen, because I know how is it like to have a child, rather a sibling that is diagnosed with cancer.
Yeah, and I get a sense very much that a community is really, really important in getting someone through this, not just the person who's fighting cancer, but their family as well.
That's super true. That's super true. I say this because we were also supported by our church members and our pastor, where we were based in Richmond under Pietermaritzburg. They were always there for us. They would come almost every Thursday to do prayer sessions with us. Should they have donations, they would come in and donate at our family. That really gave us hope into making sure that we are going to survive. And my sister was going to make it. Unfortunately, she didn't make it, and she passed on.
Cleo, it's really been a pleasure talking to you. Thanks so much indeed for sharing your story with us. And thank you for the work that you're doing with CHOC in KwaZulu-Natal. I think your experience and your knowledge are doing great things for the children there. Thanks so much indeed.
Thank you so much, and have a lovely evening.
Thank you. All right, there was Cleo Sosibo, who's a CHOC Regional Program Assistant and House Supervisor at CHOC House in Pietermaritzburg, sharing her personal story in terms of her sister, but also now that the work that she's doing since qualifying as a nurse. All right, for our next guest, we go all the way to Ireland and County Kildare. And there we find Zach, Seth, and Melissa. Now, Zach and Seth are twins, and Seth is a childhood cancer survivor. Seth was treated in Johannesburg, and 2 years ago, the family moved to Ireland, and we're privileged to speak to them today. Welcome to Mom, Melissa, and to Zach and Seth. Hello to both of you. Can you say hello in Irish? Oh, that's fantastic. Oh, gosh. So good to have you, all three of you. And Melissa, thanks so much indeed for joining us. I want to start with you because I guess being a mom of twins and one gets diagnosed with cancer, it must be a really difficult thing to balance. You know, we heard just now from Cleo that you've got to try and give love to all, but I'm sure that the heart pulls quite hard for the one that's not well.
Absolutely, Peter. And I think, you know, the truth is when you have twins or two children at the same time, you really have to find that balance from day one, because you don't get to give full attention to one child at a time. So when you're experiencing that as a mom with two children at the same time, feeling like you need to be two people as it is already, introducing cancer into the mix is most certainly a challenge, because life doesn't stop. Life absolutely needs to continue. Life for the sibling, and I mean, we have an older sibling as well, Josh, who's 10 years older than the boys, but at the time he was a young teenager, and it was balancing, I think, what felt like puberty and potty training at the same time back then, as well as cancer. So definitely to be pulled in three ways with different needs for children and continue living your life as you need to with day-to-day activities, work, social, friendships, family, absolutely is difficult, yes.
Yeah, Zach, I know that there's a special bond between twins, and I just wonder, what was the most difficult part for you when you found out that your brother Seth was diagnosed with cancer?
Staying home with nobody to play with every day when I was 4 and 5 years old was very boring. Sometimes Seth had to go to the hospital for a long time, and I wish he was there so we could just have fun. We couldn't really go anywhere cool because we had to keep Seth away from the germs. I also had to stay away from the germs so I didn't make Seth sick. This meant Seth and I could not go to school. Instead, we were homeschooled. We could not go to any birthday parties or have any birthday parties of our own.
Wow, Seth, that must have been a difficult journey for you. I guess it was important to have Zach on this journey with you. Tell us about how important Zach was to you.
Like one of my best memories is joining Chuck and Supersport for the Tackling Cancer campaign. It was a really big and important event, and I'm glad Zach could experience it with me because we really had fun meeting all the rugby players. Also, Zach and I were gifted twin orangutans. I named mine Peanut, he named his Paddington, and Peanut and Paddington kept us company when we couldn't see each other. Peanut came to me every hospital stay and big events. I think he's in every photo we had from the time. He even had his own port and would get pretend medicine when I had to take mine.
Oh, fantastic. And it's so good to see you guys smiling and happy and with these memories, fighting this journey, but winning in the end. Melissa, I guess, and we've been talking about it quite a bit, and it's an important theme, community and support. Where did that come from for you?
Peter, I think we were really fortunate to have immense support from all angles. And I think, you know, first and foremost, the support I was to my husband and the support he was to me was the foundation of everything. And I think without each other, we wouldn't have been able to get through this. There were absolutely tough times. And I think families can be, you know, it can make or break a family situation when childhood cancer is brought into the mix. And there were times where it probably felt like it was going to break, but it didn't, because we were each other's strength. But in addition to that, we had, and I will be honest, in hindsight, looking at the Donald Gordon Medical Center, it was a frustrating time for me, and I was angry with the world, and I didn't understand what was going on. And cancer humbled me, and it made me kinder. And I think looking back now, I should have been a lot kinder to the support that was given to us, because it was phenomenal. I think just when you're going through it, you don't realize that. So their support was outstanding. Of course, the schools that the boys, or the school that the boys attended, as we mentioned, they weren't able to attend school, but the principal ensured that there was a teacher that came to the house every day to give them the stimulation that they needed at that age, 4 and 5 years old, arranged for friends without germs to come visit, took them to the library, took them out for ice cream. And there was such a comfort just knowing that that day-to-day support that they needed as children, and the social activity they needed was still brought into their lives. Even when Seth was in hospital, you know, Zach continued to get that support. Lydia, our nanny, she was the third parent in our home. And, you know, at the time we were still working in the office. We had to leave the boys home with her. She was able to notify us if there was a nosebleed or a temperature or anything we needed to worry about for Seth. She would be letting the teachers in. She just made sure that life continued. She took that extra pressure off us, and she's still a very big part of our life. And it was terribly sad to say goodbye to her. And then our employers, you know, we weren't working in a hybrid or remote working environment at the time. And they were so supportive and understanding in the needs for us to be at the hospital or to work from home on particular days. And again, I think those are pressures that we take for granted. If you don't have that and you don't have an employer who's as understanding, it just creates an additional layer of pressure. We didn't have that, and I'm so grateful. And then I think last, but definitely not least, Chuck. We were fortunate enough to not need Chuck as support necessarily for our family. We were privileged enough to have access to the hospital, to private medical care. But I was very naive. I was not educated. I didn't know Chuck existed before I knew cancer was in our family. And I drew strength from working alongside them in creating the awareness. My husband was part of the Parents Supporting Parents, Dad Supporting Dads program. He drew his strength from that. And I think being able to share our story as well as bring awareness to other families who need to know so that they can make early decisions for their children is in itself a privilege and support. A support that's not recognized at the time, but in hindsight, something I could not have lived without.
Yeah, I know that you talked about perhaps being kinder, but I've got a feeling that they've seen it before and they fully understand what you're going through. But great to have them on board at an important time like that. Zach, I know you were young at the time. I mean, you're still a young man now, but at that time, I just wonder if you felt a little scared when you found out what was going on.
I don't believe I was scared of anything. I think I was too young to understand how scary it was. But now I look back at all the scary things that did happen, and I can't imagine what it was like for my parents to give me and Seth a very happy life. But one thing that I was quite worried about was when Seth got his port. It just seemed like a big operation, and I used to get really worried that people would get too close to him because I thought the machines would just break.
Yeah. What about you, Seth? How did you feel at that time? And I suppose it was good to have mom and dad and brothers and people around to help you.
You see, I was also too young to understand. I thought it was just like flu. You just got sick, but it was just for a much longer time.
Oh, but you remember a lot of help around you.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. And it made you feel comfortable. It made you feel safe, even though you didn't quite know what the whole story was.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good to hear. Brothers, how are you feeling now? Are you closer, do you think, because you spent so much time together during that time? Let's start with you, Zach.
Nothing has changed over the many years Seth and I have been brothers. We've always been very different, but also close. We spent a lot more time together when Seth was being treated because we only had each other. But now we have different interests and different friends, but we still support one another. We fight like any other ordinary siblings. But I know that if I need him or he needs me, nothing can come between us.
That's fantastic. What about you, Seth?
As Zach said, we're very different. We definitely spent a lot more time together than I think we would have if I didn't get sick, but we're still close.
Yeah, and Melissa, as a mom watching these boys during that difficult time, he was a little man, Zach, but I guess he must have been a blessing to his brother that he was being normal during an abnormal time.
Absolutely, Peter. And I think, certainly part of our strategy was not to treat Seth as if he was sick. Obviously, we knew that he was, but we wanted to give him and by default, Zach, the most ordinary life possible. So our activities at home, we didn't say, oh no, don't do that, Seth's sick, or don't do that, Zach, it was really just quite natural. And I think, maybe at the time, like you said, he was a lot younger and he didn't really understand. But to your point, watching Zach be an ordinary, healthy little boy made Seth continue being a healthy, as far as possible, happy little boy too, and inspired by his brother very, very much. Yes.
Yeah. So Zach and Seth, you're older now, and I think you have an understanding of what Seth went through. What would be your message to children, perhaps, who are finding out that, they've got this life-threatening illness and that they will go through a few things? Let's start with you, Zach.
My message to Seth is I am so proud of him, and I'm so lucky. He's so lucky to be alive. I'm just glad that I don't have to live my life without him. And if I may also ask if he can please clean his side of the room, that would be great.
That sounds like me and my brother growing up. Seth, what's your final message?
My message is thank you for helping me through a long and hard journey. There was nothing to do on most days, but you always made me laugh, and laughter is apparently the best medicine.
Oh my goodness, you guys are amazing. Melissa, I mean, there's so many questions that I could still ask you, but time's not on our side. So maybe one is there anything you could have done differently? And maybe also a message to parents who are getting the message that, you know, your child's got cancer.
Peter, I think at the time I probably, again, was a lot harder on myself and not as kind as I am now. So at the time, I probably would have done a lot differently. But in practicing my kindness and looking back, no, there's nothing I would have done. Nobody gives you a manual about childhood cancer. We did the very best that we could, and I think we did a damn good job. And I think any parents that's going through this, the best piece of advice that I can give to you is exactly that. Just be kind to yourself. There are no right or wrong answers. Take one day at a time, and like us, sometimes 5 minutes at a time, because that's what you have to do to move forward. You're in this journey, when I say alone, not alone. There are so many people around you. There's such a support system that's there to reach out to, including myself. So if there's anyone out there and you ever need to talk, I'm here. Speak to Chuck, they'll have my contact details. You're never alone, and know that you're never alone. And you don't have to have all the answers.
No.
It's a scary time. It is really scary.
But the help is there, isn't it? And I guess that's what you must grab hold of. Okay, Seth and Zach, is it football or rugby? And I think there's an Irish game as well, isn't there?
Yeah, GAA and hurling. Those are the two Irish ones.
So which are the big ones for both of you?
Football for me.
Yeah. And Zach?
Yeah. Dancing.
Well, we hope that one day you'll be back to play rugby for South Africa. Take care.
Peter. It was lovely to see you. Thank you for having us, and have a
you.
great day.
Thanks so much indeed for both of you, and to you, Melissa. It's been lovely chatting to you. Your story, quite inspiring. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, that was Seth, Melissa and Zach sharing their story, which played out in South Africa, but has continued in Ireland. And again, family and support, a central theme there in getting through a very difficult time. But these kids, amazing, aren't they? All right, let's come back to South Africa. And now we're joined by Mompani Ngakatsi, whose family lives in the Northwest Province here in South Africa. And his family had 2 children with cancer, and living in a province where there is not always the great support, but I guess challenging. And I just wonder, Ntate Ngakatsi, thanks so much indeed for joining us, and welcome to the program.
Good evening. Thanks, Peter, and everyone. Thanks for having me.
It's very rare that 2 children in one family are diagnosed with cancer. Tell us about your journey and how you coped, because this must have been a real challenge.
Indeed, that was a very challenging period. One was diagnosed in 2020, and it was the youngest one, and he was more severe. And the other one, and also because it was also happening during COVID period, because it was in March, when now we were not sure whether it's what is this, because we were not yet sure what is the type of disease, and because it was on the lungs and it was so difficult, we thought it's COVID, and others were saying a lot of things. But finally, we managed to be able to get a diagnosis to say it's cancer. And then when the journey thought that now we are done, because he went through chemo and he went through the other treatment. But when we thought now we are done, and then the other one started in February 2021. And we also gone through the same process. Luckily, the second one was not really so severe. And also it was for the elder brother. That other one was the younger brother. The first one was the younger brother. So, it was so difficult going through such kind of a process. But finally, here we are, and we just thank God to be here.
Oh, it's fantastic. I just wonder, did the institutions like the church, school, maybe, did they play a role in supporting your family during this difficult time?
Yeah, the difficulty with the church, we were not able to go to church during that time.
Oh yeah, COVID.
People were not even able to visit, maybe to come, maybe and assist us in that regard, maybe to be with us because of the restrictions which were there and all those things. But luckily with the school, it plays very vital role in the whole process, because as soon as we identify that the child has a cancer, we told the school, because that was my biggest worry, because at least our biggest worry was the school, because then other children, how are they going to react, especially with COVID, which was also on the sideline. So luckily, the school was very, very supportive in the process, and we managed to go through even with the second child because the school was behind us.
The second child was the older brother, and I just wonder, there must have been some fear that he had, because seeing the younger brother getting ill and then being told that you also now have cancer. How did you cope with that and help him through that?
It was a very, very, very difficult process because he always knew, he always saw how his younger brother was going through, and he was even worried that maybe after chemo also you'll also have to go to other treatments. Unfortunately enough, he was not able to go up to that stage of the other treatments, but at least he only went through the chemo. And that was also one of the difficult, because he was also a teenager, where he is able to also to try to balance this thing as he grow up, because now he's more aware. He's starting to getting more aware about number of things. He's an adolescent and all those kind of things. So it was more difficult, it became more difficult more than the first one, because the first one was not really aware about what was going on. Yes.
So what we know is that the Northwest Province, there isn't pediatric oncology units there, and you had to travel quite far distances to get treatment for your children. How did that affect the family, and what was your biggest support during this time?
Financially, it was killing us, because we have to travel to Johannesburg every 2 weeks. And the time when we thought we are done, in January when we are done, and then there started another process. Again, every 2 weeks we have to go to Johannesburg. And that was one of the difficult part, because then financially, coming from this province, it's quite distant from here to Dr. Gordon Hospital. So we had to travel every 2 weeks to go there. And to a certain extent, even in the family, we now started to reprioritize certain things. And as we reprioritize, we also get reminded that you are reprioritizing because of me. As children are not, now we have to call them and tell them that now we are no more going to buy this, we're going to buy that. And all those kind of questions comes from children to say, hey, now you are prioritizing is because of our traveling to Johannesburg. Why can't we leave the traveling to Johannesburg and stay here? This thing will get hit on its own. And that was one of the difficult to go there. The second thing is, waking up in the morning, we have to wake them up. And as they think that they had to go through the trip, it was a very difficult. They will not want to wake up. You end up getting late in Johannesburg. But I think thanks for the organization like CHOC, because at least, especially towards the end, I was able now to sleep at their home in Saxon World. And then we're able to at least be able to attend to other things, especially because now the boy was already getting behind in terms of the homeworks. So at least we will be able to sit in the evening. We have a whole afternoon, but then at the same time in the evening, he can be able to do some homeworks, and I will have to help him. So organizations like Talk, as they were there, they did a very great work, especially because now with accommodation, it was also very difficult to get accommodation where you can sleep, especially when he was towards the end, because he has to do a whole everyday job work for about 30 minutes.
I know that, you know, sometimes things like cancer, particularly in our cultures, can sometimes carry a stigma. And I just wonder now, here you are, a man with 2 children with childhood cancer. How did you cope? And how did the community react when they heard this? Because it can be quite a stigma that you have to face.
Hey, you know, Peter, the worst part of it is that I'm also a disabled person with cerebral palsy, and 2 kids go through the same process, and then the advice that you'll get to say, go to a Sangoma, there's something wrong with you, there's something wrong with your family, and all those kind of things. And you even ask yourself, maybe there's something that might have also happened in your life that you didn't do right, and then you had to go back and consult and all those kind of things. But lucky enough, here we are, we didn't even go through those processes. We have to focus on our children, ensure that our children are given the proper support, and especially now that they were already diagnosed, and focus on how do we assist them in the whole process. And I think to a certain level, this also gave us kind of a focus, which the support of doctors, especially when they always give you hope that this will come to an end one day. The cancer will be healed and all those kind of things. And here we are. I'm happy that today, as they go for the tests, they are still at least cleared out of the cancer.
Oh, that's great news. So what's your message then to communities and people who see parents like you with children that are facing cancer battles?
I think what is key, it's important that you need to work with your family. And you know, my wife and my siblings, her siblings, you know, working together, it's one of the strengths that has showed that this thing can be easy going through it because of the assistance of them, the church, the school. But key also is also not to keep this thing to yourself. Make sure that you make people aware before they get aware. Make sure that they get aware, especially because, you know, in the process of cancer, the child will start losing hair. And when people start seeing the child losing hair and all this kind of thing, they start asking themselves a lot of things. So it's better when you have told them, so that at least they are able to give support to yourself and your family and your child. So it is key, very important for people to make sure that they talk about this thing. Because it's not like it's something that's happened to only me, it happened to a number of people, but it is very important when you talk about it.
Well, thank you so much indeed for sharing this story with us. And I'm hoping that the message goes out there that there is help and that it is a normal thing, that sometimes children do get cancer. but with the right help, they can fight it, and it's not something that the community needs to fear. Thank you so much, Ntate Ngakatsi, for sharing your story with us, and we wish you and your family the very best.
Thank you very much, Peter, and everyone.
Thank you. All right, wonderful story there. Two children fighting cancer, and quite a challenge given some of the social stigmatization that can happen in these environments. But they got the support and the help that they needed, and also challenged by living in Northwest without the oncology units that are required, and a battle that I think some people sadly have to face in other parts of the country. But help is there. Reach out to people like CHOC, and community help as well. All right, let's move to, I think we're going to Elsie's River, and we're going to meet Hilda Stewart and Elizabeth Francis, who are both teachers at Dean Primary School in Elsie's River. Thank you so much indeed for joining us, Hilda and Elizabeth. Just to tell you, Hilda is the mother of the late Alton Stewart. Alton was 2 when he was diagnosed with cancer, and he lost his battle to cancer at the age of 14. Alton was treated at Tygerberg Hospital. Also a teacher, Elizabeth Francis is Hilda's sister-in-law, and was always by her side to visit Alton together as a family. And during their visits, they met a young man called Eldrin Sturman in the ward. Eldrin was 3 when he was diagnosed, and during Hilda and Elizabeth's visits to the ward, they fell in love with Eldrin and noticed that he wasn't receiving any visits from family members, and you could see that this little boy craved to have some love. And so they bonded with him, Elizabeth and her husband, and during these regular visits, this boy got this love from these 2 amazing people. After a process, Elizabeth and her husband adopted Eldrin Sturman. He's now 11 years old, and he's in remission and is attending St. Joseph's School. Now, both sisters and teachers teach at Dean Primary School in Elsie's River, and they're sharing their story with us about CHOC's Survivor event. They shared their story with us at CHOC Survivor event in 2022, and the school there also supports CHOC regularly. So, ladies, welcome. Good to have you both.
Good day.
Good day.
Afternoon.
I know that it's a sister-in-law relationship, but you look like sisters. People must tell you that all the time.
Yes.
Wow. All right. So let's start with you, Hilda. Alton was 2 when he was diagnosed with cancer. He lost his battle at the age of 14. And what that meant is that there was a long childhood cancer journey that you had to go through, you and your family. How did the community support you, you and your family during this time? And what did the support mean for you?
Hi, everyone. Peter. Yes, Alton was 2 when he was diagnosed with cancer. The cancer was retinoblastoma. So he lost his eye due to the cancer. So when he lost his eye, we had to raise funds for a prosthetic eye. So there the community and the church came on board, because they started with fundraising and special offerings at church to raise funds for his prosthetic eye. So that meant a lot for me, because their father passed away in 2008. So after their father passed away, there was a lot of financial strain on the family, but the community and the church, and even afterwards the school came on board, and everyone helped me to go on this journey.
Wow, yeah, that's fantastic to hear. Elizabeth, after your experience of losing your nephew, it was not hard. Was it not hard for you to go back to a similar situation by adopting a childhood cancer patient?
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having us here. It was a hard journey because we were supporting each other all the way with the children. For instance, my sister-in-law. But for us, it was a very good journey afterwards, having children in our lives. It came that my husband, he was the first one that it was lay on his heart to go and go visit him at the hospital, Tydeberg Hospital. So I support him, and I thought as a mother, I hope not. It goes that way where we are in, but they bond a lot, and after that he became my only baby. After all, I am a mother of 2 children, 25 and 30, and Eldrin was by that time 3 years old when we starting visiting him, and we also went for the process of adopting him. So he also is he's a cancer survivor. He have 2 type of cancers: the lymphoma one and the stomach cancer. Yes, but after that there was also people that was they want to adopt him. So we were only visiting him all the way. And afterwards, because he was a boy that was running up and down with all these drips up and down, and when he saw a mother, he crying out and say, "Are you my mother? Are you my mother?" all the way with tears in his eyes, because he just want a loving parent. And for me that time, it was not a difficult time to take him in, but I just thought, would it be the right thing to do? Because we are settled now, and I'm a mother already. That time I was 50, and can I do such a thing, and having a small baby in the house? So, but in the cancer mothers, they calling out a prayer day for Eldrin, for a mother, really to find someone who love him so much. And that was the time that I joined them, and we all praying for him. And then one day my husband was coming and say, "Can we go and visit him for only just to give him some?" And so when we go there at the hospital, there was so a lot of mothers around him. And then I said no, because the Lord already told me by it looked like that I have a pregnancy that time, but it was not one. So after that, it's like I gave birth to a boy, but I know maybe it was a spiritual birth. And afterwards, it's like when after that I gave birth, I was crying like a mother who lost a son. So I'm asking the Lord that time, what happening with my body and with me? And the Lord shows me his face. And that was the time that me and my husband, we went to the hospital again. So from that time, we know that the Lord was in this process. So we don't think that we will ever leave him now for anyone, because no parents return. And from that moment, he just say, "Mommy and Daddy," and was never asking any questions of who my mommy and my daddy is, because there was until that time of 3 years till 11 years, nobody that was returning and visit.
That's
Yes.
a very, very powerful story. Hilda, I just wonder, when Elizabeth said, we want to adopt this young boy, you must have thought, are you sure you know what you're doing? You must have, because you'd gone through quite a lot yourself.
Elizabeth and her husband was always part of my journey, because when Elton was diagnosed at the age of 2, they were there that day when his eye was removed. So they were part of my journey from day one, and they experienced everything that I went through, the tears, the happiness, the sad news, the bad news, the happy news, everything they shared together. So it wasn't like a new journey for them, because they were part of my journey. But for them to adopt children, it was like a revealing of the Lord that there is life after cancer, and there is life after the end of one child's journey. There is life for other child, and hope for other child. So that is our message for today. There is always hope, there's always love, and there's always happiness on this journey.
You're both teachers, and I just wonder, how do schools help? How do they support children that are fighting cancer?
Can I start?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. When my boy was in hospital, my school came to visit the ward. They asked permission to the doctors to have a visit as the whole school community to visit the ward, and they gave presents and hugs and tears, everything they gave to the ward. So they were more involved in our journey. So, and for the other schools, we post a lot of our events, we post on Facebook. So the flip-flop day and the September Childhood Cancer Awareness, we post a lot on, we have a Facebook page, our Dean's Facebook page. So every year from 2018, they started the awareness, the September Childhood Awareness, and the February is the flip-flop awareness day. So every year they are on board with this awareness campaigns.
I would imagine, Elizabeth, that it's important as educators, as teachers, to try and normalize children's experiences as much as possible whilst they're at school. How do you go about doing that?
Through work. Yes, we're starting always with our work. And also the messages that we send out to people, and even children that is in our class that is also diagnosed with cancer. Yes, there is 2 kids in the class, so we also visit them from Red Cross and so on. So we start by doing that. So and also make people aware, the children, the parents, about that.
Is stigma something that they face, Elizabeth?
For some, is it maybe a stigma, but for some, is it a real journey? They also see it as a fighting process, and they also see that because of a lot of support, it makes it very easy for them to deal with the situations that they are in.
All right, as we start to wrap up our conversation, perhaps a message from both of you. Let's start with you, Hilda. What might be your message to maybe other schools and communities when they need to come forward and help children facing cancer?
My message for the other schools is get more involved. It's not a far away journey. It's here in our schools, it's in our street, it's in our houses. So it's not like a stigma or a journey for the other child. Maybe it's today it's the other child, tomorrow it will be your child. So the sooner we get involved in that other person's journey, the sooner it will, the easier it will be for you when it's on your part, or in your family, or in your church, or in your school. So my message for the schools is get more involved, support the awareness programs that CHOC and the other organizations have at the school, and be supportive in finance, in everything.
Wonderful. What about you, Elizabeth? What's your final message?
Yes, I would say to most of the parents maybe think of adopting children. What I always say, cancer or to adopt a cancer child, there's no colors, there's no race, but there's only love. And that is what we can do. Give them love, give them support, and know that the Lord chose you for some people or some children like that who are needed help in a time like that, in their difficulties.
Wow.
And that is my message to everyone who really seeing out to adopt children, because there is some that have maybe a bad experience, or but as I said, just give love. That is all that we can give to a child.
Wow. You are both incredible, incredible women, and I wish I had teachers like you when I was a kid. But thank you so much indeed, and I hope that your message resonates with everybody that's watching this, because we can all do a little bit where we are, particularly in the school environment. So Hilda Stewart, Elizabeth Francis, thank you so much indeed for sharing your amazing story with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Wonderful story. I really enjoyed talking to these ladies. Amazing teachers and parents. And Eldrin, I know, is a young man that feels love in a very special way after having been adopted. All right, so now, remember I told you we have an international guest. Well, I'm really excited to tell you that we're privileged today to be joined by the president of Childhood Cancer International, Mr. João de Bragança. Now, he's also the president of Acredite, which is the Portuguese Association of Children with Cancer. João has been the driver of the 3-year campaign of hashtag through our hands, hashtag through your hands, and hashtag through their hands. And we know, João, that you're incredibly busy, especially on a day like today. So we thank you so much for giving us your time to bring us a special message of hope on this International Cancer Day 2023. So to you, we say, boa noite, bem-vindo.
Thank you very much, Peter, for your kind introduction. First of all, I think it's very difficult to say something interesting, slightly interesting, after the testimony of these two teachers. It was so impressive that all I should say was, well, good night, have a good night, and thank you all for, because it was such a powerful speech, such a powerful testimony, such a testimony of love, of hope. So it makes, unfortunately, it will make my life much more difficult. But nevertheless, you know, it's a privilege for me. It's an honor to be here with you today to commemorate International Childhood Cancer Day. CHOC has been a very valuable member in our CCI community and has made a difference, not only in South Africa, but in Africa and all over the world, for what you have been teaching us and for your values and for your experience. And we all thank you for that. We all know that childhood cancer is a tragedy that affects families and communities all over the world. It is a disease that steals the innocence of childhood. It steals less when you have teachers like these ones. So there's a hope inside this lack of innocence, disrupts families and creates a heavy burden on healthcare systems. It is the leading cause of death by disease among children under the age of 5. and every year more than 300,000 children are diagnosed with cancer. And despite advances in treatment, many of them will not survive. This is the stark reality that we must face, and we must work together to change it, and we are working together. Today, we come together to raise awareness and show our support for all children and families affected by this devastating disease. Today, from Chile to Australia, from Canada to Kenya, we speak with one voice. Each country will face different challenges, will have different issues to solve, but our fight is the same: to fight childhood cancer, to fight inequities, and to ensure that every child, wherever she or he lives, will have access to the best possible treatment. As you said, Peter, we are at the end of a 3-year campaign. We initiated this cycle in 2021 under the theme Through Our Hands, focusing on paying tribute to the children and adolescents with cancer and the mark that each of their lives leave on the world. In 2022, under the theme Through Your Hands, it was time to speak about the impact of the medical team. In 2023, this year, under the theme Through Their Hands, the focus is on paying tribute to the families and caregivers and the positive impact they have on the lives of children and adolescents with cancer. I can see no better way to close this 3-year cycle. As some of you may know, this cycle that now ends was developed by Benson Powell, head of CCI Asia, himself a bereaved father like me. So he's responsible for everything, and he did a tremendous job. The next 3-year cycle will be developed by CCI Europe, and I am sure they will do a fantastic work as well. Who knows if the next cycle from 2027 to 2029 won't be designed by CCI Africa. It would be a privilege for me to see a campaign developed by CCI Africa. I know it has become a bit of a cliche, but there's an Africa saying, well, at least they say it's an Africa saying, that it requires a village to raise a child. When we speak about childhood cancer, we can slightly change it and say that it requires a village to save a child. And we, CCI, as you, CHOC, and your whole community are part of this village. And it gives me much pleasure to know that in these past 3 years, we have worked very closely with SIOP in designing and promoting these global events. We think it is vital that all stakeholders are united and come up as a united front. In fact, we all work for the same purpose, and we all work under the umbrella of GICC and its objectives to raise the global survival rate to 60% in 2030, to save 1 million lives and to eliminate suffering. As I said before, it's a great honor for me to address a few words to the CHOC community. It is a great pleasure to be speaking to an African organization, because it is speaking to an organization that is a relevant stakeholder in these times of change. In fact, we know that many things are happening in Africa in what childhood cancer concerns. Good things are happening. We are organizing ourselves so that we can work in a more effective way. NGOs are working together, speaking to each other, collaborating. Under the umbrella of the World Health Organization, things are moving in the right direction in Africa. As I always say, our commitment to the future is to save 1 million lives. The names of each of these children are engraved in our hearts. We live times of great challenges. CCI is a family, and on this day, we keep looking at the difficult situation of children with cancer and their families in Ukraine, with dozens of them having to flee to other European countries to ensure their treatments. But we also look at the tragedy of the earthquake in Turkey and above all in Syria, with many families devastated by war and political sanctions. But above all, and with this I would like to finish, we live times of great hope. I think we are living the most important times of our lives in what childhood cancer is concerned. In fact, in 10 years, from 2018 up to 2013, the childhood cancer scenario will have changed enormously thanks to the collaboration of important global stakeholders as World Health Organization, St. Jude, SIOP, CCI, and many others. A couple of hours ago, I attended, I know Adri was there, well, I don't know, for some while, a global webinar organized by the WHO. And it's impressive what has been done in so many countries in the world, from Zimbabwe to the Dominican Republic, from Palestine to Mongolia. In conclusion, let us continue working together to ensure that every child diagnosed with cancer has access to the best possible care and a brighter future. And thank you, CHOC, for everything you have been doing for the childhood cancer community in Africa, but also in other parts of the world. Thank you, Adri, for the invitation. Thank you, Peter, for this wonderful, I'm missing the word, moderation, facilitation, and thank you to everyone for a fantastic work who will benefit enormously our children all over the world. And thank you for that.
João, just before you disappear, just one quick question. I know that you work on a global level, and I think sometimes when we're working in countries and communities, we think that our battles are unique and are, only us are going through this. I just wonder if you could just give us a global perspective, because I've always thought, and this is maybe a message that can come through from you, is that what we all have in common is our humanity, and that our children have the same needs, no matter which country they are, which community. And I just wonder the important things that our children need that we can give them as communities during these difficult times.
Sometimes I'm a bit metaphoric. I don't like very scientific words, but I think what we can give them is what the one of the teachers told, is love. Love can assume various forms. We can hug a child, and with that increase its survival rate because he feels reassured. But love is also to fight for a brighter future. Love can be also to advocate, to raise awareness. So what they need is that, from a practical point of view, what the children need, but also the survivors, and they are a very important part of our fight, what they need is that we keep the childhood cancer theme under the spotlight. Never, never, never stop talking about childhood cancer, about the needs, about the lack of love, about abandonment, about the needs of the survivors, about hope, 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 hope. So this is, well, obviously, if you go to South Africa, the children will have specific needs. I always say that in Europe, we are fighting for a better survivorship. In Africa, we are still fighting for survivorship. So in different parts of the world, we are facing with different realities, with different needs. But one thing is common. We must keep this on the agenda. Never stop talking about childhood cancer until we've eradicated the disease from our lives, which is still a dream. I don't know if I've answered your question or not.
You have so very well. And I want to say thank you very much indeed, once again, for your time on such an important day, and for your powerful message as well. Thank you so much. Muito obrigado.
And your Portuguese is perfect. Congratulations for that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, João. Take care.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that's the president of Childhood Cancer International, João de Braganza speaking to us, and a wonderful message, I think, that helped wrap up today's conversation. And yeah, we can give love, and we can give love in abundance, and it can come in many different forms. But it seems to be the magic, I think, that makes all the difference. And if we look back at all the stories that we've heard today, that seems to be one of the threads. We might have described it slightly differently, but I think when communities come together, communities show love, incredible things happen and miracles can happen. All right, let's have our final word and to wrap things up for today. And it's my great pleasure to welcome Hedley Lewis, who's the CEO of CHOC Childhood Cancer Foundation, just to conclude the day for us. Hedley, great to see you.
Thanks so much, Peter, and thanks so much to everyone. I think that when you look at Through Their Hands, it really culminates a really impressive series, a series of unity, hope, and love. And I think it really shows that in order to have that picture of best possible prognosis, best possible journey for these families, there are so many individuals, organizations, entities, governments that really unite together with the medical fraternity. For us, it's about saying every person, every heart, every hand is really what journeys and pushes that family along, hopefully reducing the anxiety, but simultaneously getting them to the journey of best possible prognosis. For us today, it was about saying that the caregivers, the families, the parents, the organizations too are not forgotten. And I think we often forget that there are so many entities, so many individuals that are just working or helping or just sending that word of love and hope. The inspiration, and sometimes is that block that just pushes that family along. For us today, I think that we've heard inspiration, love, and care. When you're hearing child helping child, when you're helping families, when you hear the love and passion of teachers, siblings, carers, and from the parents themselves, you can only realize that in order for us to overcome and to get to that 2030 goal of 60%, it truly is going to need the entire globe to unite, whether on our continent, other continents, or as a complement to these families. It is only humbling to hear the voices and the hope. Emotions were high. Tears definitely were shed as we heard some of the really heroic stories from some of the youngest, some of the oldest, from the wise, and from different continents. For us as CHOC, it is only a privilege to host and unite individuals that really come together. Speaking today, hearing families like Zach, Seth, and Melissa, hearing the Gabatsi family and their dad was just absolutely admirable, but heart-wrenching at the same time. Hearing Hilda Stewart, Elizabeth Francis, and concluding with Cleo was really an inspiration to us. And obviously to host Zhao, president of CCI, was an opportunity of a lifetime. To thank you all for coming together to create one hope. All the voices unite to create a harmony, a love, and it truly shows that you don't need solos in the voices, you just need a complement of a choir. So to all of you that have taken the time to spread the hope, to spread the love, to journey with all of these families, we can only say a huge thank you.
Hedley, to you and your team, actually, thank you very, very much indeed for the work that you do. I am always left feeling enriched when we have these conversations and we hear testimony of just how much change, help, assistance, support that CHOC does all the time. And so thank you, Hedley, for you and your team and the amazing work that you do. And to all of our guests today, thank you. You guys, wonderful stories. And I just hope that it resonates, and that little pebble that we've thrown into the pond, the ripples go far and wide, so that this magic that Joao described as love can become commonplace in this world. To all of you, thank you very much indeed for watching. We look forward to seeing you at the next webinar. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.